Perfect. All right, Morena team. Kia ora. If we could just get your attention, that would be awesome. Cool. So welcome to our Strategy, Operations and Finance Committee meeting of the 7th of December. Welcome to elected members, councillors, community board members, mana whenua representatives who I think will be joining us shortly, but we also have a couple of apologies in that space. And Chris has also just reminded me that it is our last soft meeting of the year. So we're quickly approaching Christmas. A lot has been achieved. A lot of work has been put in by both elected members and staff. And so just an acknowledgement of that fact. And also, I guess well wishes for the holiday season too. So we will now shift. We'll also, just an FYI, take a break after item 8.2, the Climate Change and Resilience Strategy Direction of Travel. But before we crack into the rest of the meeting, I'll pass to Councillor Warwick for our council blessing.
E a mātou e whiriwhiri ana i ngā taki ki a mua, e mātou aroaro. E pono ana mātou, ka kaha tonu ki te whakapau, mahara huapai mō ngā hāpori i mahi nei mātou. Me kaha hoki mātou katoa kia whai hua, kia tika tā mātou mahi, a mā te maia, te tiro whakamua me te hirihiri, ka taia te arahi e roto e te kotahitanga me te aroha.
Kia ora, Councillor Warwick. Thank you for that. Great job. And have been loving seeing other elected members give it a go on Te Reo Māori. And also thank you to the DEM Services team who have now put the Te Reo Māori translation side by side with the English council blessing. That is much appreciated. We will follow that up. Yeah. It's been progressed, the recordings of the council blessing in Te Reo, so that more of us can learn it, and also I think the council waiata potentially too, so we can practice ki Kāpiti. Yeah. So moving on to item number 3, apologies. Deputy Mayor Kirby is on a leave of absence. Kim Tahiwi will join the hui online, but may need to depart early, so from Ngā Hapua Ōtaki. And the Deputy Chair of the Waikana Community Board, Michael Moore, also sends his apologies. Are there any other apologies? No. Can I have someone to move those apologies? Councillor Wilson seconded. Mayor Holborough. All those in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Declarations of interest relating to items on the agenda. I haven't been made aware of any. So moving right along. Item number 5, public speaking time for items relating to the agenda. We do have one, Sandra Daly, who's speaking to item 8.1, the Kāpiti Health Advisory Group, terms of reference. So welcome up to the table, Sandra. Okay, perfect. I've just been advised that you might join us for that item, but feel free to make your way up to the table because that is our first item on the agenda. And Gina as well. Perfect. So members' business, leave of absences, haven't been made aware of any, but you can let the Mayor's office know. Matters of an urgent nature, also have not been made aware of any updates. There are none. Now moving to item 8, reports, 8.1, Kāpiti Health Advisory Group, terms of reference. So welcome Sandra and Gina to the table. And just acknowledging too that this kaupapa has been through the Social Sustainability Subcommittee, chaired by Councillor Halliday, and also thrashed out in a range of different arenas and ways. So the decision that we're making today kind of feels like hopefully the rubber stamping of all of that amazing work. So I'll pass to Gina and Sandra for an introduction.
Yeah, I was just going to briefly say, just to reiterate Sophie's points, and did want to give Sandra a chance just to make an opening comment, and thought, Martin, that you might just provide us with a bit of an overview or commentary from the social sustainability, because I will note paragraph 10 of the paper does let you know that the terms of reference and work program have been endorsed by the subcommittee and forwarded on that basis to this committee for approval. So I will offer Sandra a chance to make some comments.
And thank you for having me here this morning. I just have to say on behalf of our group that we are very delighted to have reached this day after quite a few months of working it through. Having the backing of the council in this way gives us some credibility and helps open doors. And on that basis, we've been able to do a few things so far. And we're looking, who knows what we'll be able to achieve in the current health environment. But we're really looking forward to being able to make a difference for Kāpiti in that time. Thank you.
All right, we'll go to, actually, are there any questions of staff around the report? We'll do that first, and then Councillor Halliday, if you're happy to move and then make some comments then. Councillor Coe.
Yeah, look, I just am gobsmacked at the amount of work you've got on with this group, which is all being done on a voluntary basis, and I'm just really concerned about the financial and resourcing side of it. I know you've got a note in there to say that you'll come back to us once the terms of reference have been approved, but it would be good, really good to get some idea of, the size of the job, especially in terms of dollars, so that we can put that into our thinking as we go forward with the long-term plan. So do you have a sort of a rough ballpark idea?
Thank you. Yes, we do. At this stage, we're planning on a workshop in February to flesh out a little bit more around our work program for the coming year. At this point, we don't anticipate huge costs. We send out a monthly newsletter which goes to 300 or 400 people in the community, and we have a website that we like to keep up to date with because we have a directory there of health services provided. So those costs, I think, for the rest of the financial year are unlikely to come to more than $5,000.
I was just thinking more longer term, like for the long-term plan.
Longer term at this stage.
Next 3 to 5 years or so, yeah.
At this stage, unless there is something that particularly needs to be done that Council asks for as part of the health strategy, we don't envisage huge costs as part of what we're doing.
Right, thank you.
I just may also add to that to note that we are prepared to manage that within baseline through the LCP period. And I think through this triennium, I hope, as we're developing that work program, get a better sense of whether there is anything bigger that we would then come back to you to discuss and determine where to next.
And I just add to that as well, one of the key things that they're supporting us on is the health strategy, and that's where we'll start talking about what the other work looks like in the longer term.
Look, I just wanted to add to that as well. It's a bit like the housing decision we made to get involved in housing. This is actually a central government deliverable with regards to things. So the majority of work that the group will be looking at is actually tying into the health strategy, which is actually part of the council structuring around this. As such, other than that, it's really a facilitation type situation.
Yeah. Cool. Any other questions from the table? There don't seem to be any. So in that case, I'm aware Councillor Halliday would like to move. Is there someone who would like to second the recommendations? Councillor Spires. Right of introduction.
Yeah, look, I don't want to actually get too heavily into talking about this because it's been a long time coming. What I do want to do though is just thank Sandra and the team for your perseverance. I was very quick to jump on this committee and this triennium because, in my opinion, it wasn't very well supported over the last triennium. No disrespect, but the purpose that they were there for wasn't really utilised, and so I didn't want to. And I've noticed this before. We're very, very fortunate. The expertise around that table and the volunteer time, the contacts, the links that they have in, is only going to bode exceedingly well for our area. In the conversations that are going to come up. It's already been expressed by the work streams that are already in place in a very short period of time. So I think the kaupapa of what we've got here is fantastic. This is an area that we know we've got issues in regards to what do we need here. We know there's a lack of GPs, there's a lack of this and there's a lack of that, but our needs are set. It'll go a little bit like down the housing pathway. We'll do an assessment. What do we have? What do we need? And then we can move into advocacy role with regards to attracting that here. And even from an ED perspective, there's that tie-in with regards to looking to attract those types of businesses here as well to support the health delivery in our area as such. So I do hope you all support this. I'd love to have this as unanimous. There's not an exceedingly high cost to council in regards to what we get as a return out of this, but it captures a fantastic group of people and really works towards our community partnership type situation. And I think I'll leave it at that as such. But
Awesome.
again, just passing on thanks to the group as such for the work and the patience and perseverance they've had over the last about 8 or 9 years.
I'm sure that's echoed around the table too, those thanks. So appreciate it. Councillor Spires.
Thank you. I just want to echo Councillor Halliday's comments and say a big thank you to Chris and Gina at Council. And thank you very much, Sandra. It's been a long, long, hard road getting this far. And I just really wanted to say thanks heaps to the staff as well for getting us in this space now. So yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Holbrook.
Yeah, just echoing that gratitude that's already been expressed around the table. I know there's been a bit of uncertainty at times too, and the proactive nature that the group has come forward and advocated for themselves as an advocacy group, and the promise of what can be achieved and what has been achieved already is absolutely fantastic. And that's not taking away from any of the other groups that are working in the health space in the district. What we're doing today is acknowledging that the work that this group does is something that we feel is appropriate for us to support as a council so that we can move forward with some of these focus areas. So, and I don't think it crosses over the work that other groups are doing, rather all hands to the pump, because it's challenging times and we're in a really challenging space. So thank you for the work that you do and that you're going to do.
Also, total with that. Councillor Cooper.
Yes, I'd like to just agree with both Martin and Janet. Outstanding work. Just administration with this establishment of Te Akawhai Ora Māori Health Authority. Will this term of reference come back, be changed before it's, or does it even matter?
We are in
a minor
debate, but
point,
it would be good to have a response to that. So,
Have a response to
It's
that?
probably for Chris.
Yeah, we will be watching closely next steps in the health space as we get direction from, I'm going to assume, the Ministry of Health on how any change will be implemented or managed. And if there is a need to adjust the terms of reference, we'll of course come back. And it may be, depending on the significance of that change, whether it might be something that we're able to manage offline with the Chief Executive and Chair of this committee or the Mayor, or if it's more substantive, we'll come back to this forum, I think.
Great. Thank you. And again, good work. Love it. Cheers.
awesome. Right of reply, Councillor Halliday.
Just briefly, these guys have survived on the smell of an oily rag, to be honest. And again, it's just taking on board what the Mayor said as well. It's not about delivery. We're not there to take over, or the group, from my opinion, is not there to take over the roles in the health area. It's all about advocacy. It's about finding out what the gaps are and supporting those places and helping to bring them together of. So, yeah. All good stuff, eh, Sandra? We're finally there.
Cool, yeah, all good stuff. Great way to end the debate. All right, all those in favour? Aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Gina. Well done. All right, so moving on to item 8.2, Climate Change and Resilience Strategy, Direction of Travel. I think we've got Doug coming up to the table. Oh, and just acknowledging too that Kim Tahiwi of Ngā Hapu o Ōtaki has also joined us online. So Kim, if you have any pātai or anything you want to contribute, just raise your hand and we'll make sure to come to you. And Gina's staying up at the table too. Yes, awesome. That makes sense. And acknowledging too, just as the last paper had, that this paper has also been to the Climate and Environment Subcommittee, and as mentioned in the recommendations, has had a level of endorsement from that subcommittee. And so, yeah, useful to have a bit of background to the paper, and then we'll open for questions. Thanks, Doug, or Chris, or Gina, whoever's going to start.
I'm just going to kick off and say, before I hand over to the team, that I just want to clarify today, we are very much focused on the aspirational target for climate change that we have spoken about in the Climate and Environmental Subcommittee, that we have talked about more broadly, and that you had previously indicated you would set by the end of the year, and that is happening in this meeting today. We have circulated for you the draft direction of travel document so that you could get a sense of the things that we think are levers to drive change around an emissions reduction target, because you've previously been interested in what would that mean and what would it take. I also want to note that there's been a lot of discussion around the idea of the importance of an aspirational target, being that you're setting that intention and goal to support the direction that has been taken nationally with New Zealand signing up to the Paris Agreement, which is an international treaty. And so this is really looking at Kāpiti District's contribution to that, and that really it's that nod that we're behind it. And you will have a chance to look at the direction of travel to approve it and have more discussion on that next year. But that will be after our new Climate Change and Resilience think tank has given us some feedback on that, and that's not happening to the new year because we were just waiting on appointments from mana whenua and also the community board representatives to be landed. That has now happened. So we've had good progress in that space, but it means that we'll hold another meeting next year before we bring that draft direction of travel document back for you to agree. So not looking for feedback on that today. We'll be looking to discuss or hear your thoughts around the aspirational target. And
Yeah,
I think that's important.
Yeah, no, I think that's important too, and thanks, Chris, for providing that context. So if we can keep that in mind when we're asking questions and also debating the paper, that what we're looking to approve today is the aspirational district-wide emissions reduction target, and that's predominantly what this conversation and this paper gives background to. So, yeah, Doug and Gina, is there anything you wanted to add around the paper or any comments?
No, I don't. I think you've covered it pretty well, Chris. I think the only thing I'd add is just when you're having a look at the direction of travel document, which, as noted, we're not asking for feedback at this time on, there shouldn't be anything too surprising in there. We've had those conversations previously with subcommittees and council members and briefing workshops as well. So. Is it?
Yeah, I think just to add to me, I think we've got a good start. I think we've got a good direction travel document. We've engaged with this committee and the Climate and Environment Subcommittee well, I think, and just good to have a bit more time. I think it's the right call to get that engagement with mana whenua and the think tank. So looking forward to the outcomes of that process. Thank you.
I definitely agree that there's been a good amount of engagement and a good robustness of that engagement too. We've had a lot of conversations around kind of workshop tables and groupings in the chambers, and yeah, that's felt really useful because I think it's helped to inform where today's landed, and there's been a lot of elected member input, so thank you and the team for that. It's been really, really beneficial. Awesome. Any questions? No questions. Oh, Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, this might not be, and just tell me if it's not the right forum to bring it up, but in terms of the 2040 target, and even the 2050 target, to be honest, I don't understand how the policy or the wording sets out that significant emission reductions in forestry planting carbon sequestration would be needed to achieve a net zero. I don't understand how we can have a conversation setting aspirational target of 2040 if we're not having conversation as to the cost of that sequestration and what that looks like. Are we talking 2,000 hectares of trees somewhere, or are we talking some riparian planting? And that has a cost, a major cost.
Yeah, is this a question for staff, or is this a comment that you wanted to?
It's a question.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely a question.
Yeah. Okay, Chris can respond.
Yeah, and that may come in the think tank that's coming, but.
And I think that's a great question. I think the response to this is, and the reason we did include the direction of travel document is just for that very point, is a lot of the work that we will progress to really shift the dial is through advocating and working with others to make stuff happen. So around some of these items, it's not us spending money, it's encouraging others to spend money. So if we can't get agreement from others to do things, then our progress towards those aspirational targets will be slower. So our energy and effort is going to be in making sure that we're putting and pushing actually some key players to get involved in some of these areas for the good of this community. And I'm quite comfortable making that statement, given that a national direction's been set. New Zealand signed up to the Paris Agreement, and that means nationally, regionally and locally we should have some good alignment. So some of our key levers might well be at a regional level in some of these spaces. And so we are quite prepared and ready to get involved in those conversations and to push.
So is there an intent to actually quantify what that question looks like? Or is that what the think tank will do? Or is that not the purpose of the think tank? Who's going to do that work and when's it going to be done?
So we haven't sorted that out yet, but the think tank is there to guide and support the strategy on what direction of travel it should take, not that level of detail looking at forestry. But we've just had our Wellington Regional Emissions Reduction Plan approved with the region, and that's something that can be looked at as a means to better understand what across the region is needed to try and get better sequestration through.
So that work is in a work plan, or is it not in a work plan?
It's not at the moment, but
not
it
in
is. It's an area that we need to look at more clearly. Absolutely.
Sorry, maybe I should clarify. What will be coming through and sharing and seeking approval on will be first the strategy, the implementation plan underneath that, which includes some things that are underway already. So you will have seen from NENCA, and currently it would be Monique, sharing some of the work that's underway. There'll be additional things we add to that as we come through, but sorry, a lot of the new things on the table are going to be how we work with others and how we're getting them on our cause or aligning our causes, really. So we've started, but there's more to be done.
Yep, thank you. It's not a question, it's a comment. I'd like at some point for us to understand the cost to our organisation.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, fair. I think we'd all appreciate that. Councillor Halliday.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I'm all for aspirational, as you well know, but I do take on board what Councillor Cooper's talking to as well. You know, we're 10 years out of alignment with central government. I do worry that there will be funding pathways that won't be available to us because of that alignment. After saying that, I do believe we do need to get on with things, and from that, leading by example and working in the community space with regards to changing mentalities in this space. Because to me, it's a big chunk of what this is about changing mentalities and headspace and people taking personal responsibility in this area.
Did you have a question, Councillor Halliday?
No, well, I guess that was a concern. I just wanted to flag that as an issue. The only question I had wasn't really a question, it was more of a flag. 18.2 on page 19 starts to talk about the relationship between this paper and the relationship between this paper and the waste minimisation aspect of things. We're about to land a waste minimisation strategy, and I just wanted to flag that there could be maybe a stronger tie into that strategy with regards to deliverable around here, because we've been focusing a lot on that climate aspect of things, which is great as a focus, but a big part of that is actually going to be the low-hanging fruit, and to me that aspect is a low-hanging fruit. It would be nice to have that sort of starting to be talked to in these papers as well, just to help bring that awareness up. It wasn't so much a question, it was just more of a flag than anything else.
Cool.
As well. Love the aspiration. I didn't realise we were going district-wide with this sort of aspiration, to be honest. I thought it was an internal thing. But after saying that, let's see where it goes. So quite looking forward to that.
Just in terms of that point around waste and waste minimisation, there are a couple of very well-informed and capable people on the think tank who bring that waste perspective. So in the conversations around those tables, they are constantly inputting.
Yeah, so I was just trying to
the waste.
bring
So
that
getting
through.
it connected in with the reports that come to the table.
Because we're going to have a strategy, so it's actually it should be an easy link. A real easy link.
Sure.
I'll just add to that to say, when we do bring the direction of travel document back to you for your endorsement next year, Focus Area 2 transition has a really strong focus on waste reduction. So you will see those linkages. Around today's paper, we'd focus more on the emissions reduction conversation because we're seeking your agreement to push forward with the aspirational target.
Yeah, okay, lovely. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Halliday. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions because the Paris Agreement has been mentioned a few times and that somehow we're committed to it. I just wonder, under the current coalition agreement, there's a promise there to restart drilling for fossil fuels. There's already been announcements about billions being cut to climate action. both the climate and environment ministers are ministers outside cabinet. Deforestation protections are going. So I just wonder about the stuff that we signed up for. How much of that is real and how much of that is going to stay real. And so it seems until we understand what the national policy is on this stuff, we're kind of operating on a former paradigm, which is shifting quickly. So that's my question, and it comes back to what Glenn was saying. If you're investing a lot of money into programs, you really want programs that are going to work. And if you invest a lot of money locally, and in the meantime we get to see all the oil derricks out by Kāpiti Island, then it just seems like a waste of money. So I just wonder how tuned we are to the national policy on this stuff and the direction.
If I may, and you will note in this paper, we've commented that there's 200 countries engaged in the Paris Agreement, including China and the USA, who globally are the greatest contributors to our challenge and addressing our challenge. It is true that the national government is making adjustments to the approach we take. I think it's really important to note that the Paris Agreement's focused on century. So it's achieving change through the century, not within a 10, 20 or 30-year timeframe. So there's a long-term game there. And you will see, I think, over time, shifts of countries leaning very strongly into it and pulling away. And there is a bit of pulling away by a couple of countries at the moment. So I do want to put that on the table. Fundamentally, I think the challenge point might actually be what Martin's raised, which is central government will determine how much money it wants to put into driving certain national and even regional-led change. That is outside of our control. We can advocate, though, for the things that we think are important locally, and I think that the aspirational target is more down that end of the spectrum than it being about how much more we ourselves are putting on the table. So I do also want to say that some of the levers that we're planning to sort of pull are around business and how business is operating, sustainable business and a range of things that we've already got on the table. And that is more in the education, awareness, advocacy zone. We've talked about things with the community. Also, our partners, be they the Ministry for the Environment, regional government or others who might be able to support us to shift some big things to move forward. Economic development is another big zone where bringing business into this community and being able to offer people some simple things like being able to work within walking distance of their premise are small things that can add a big difference to this challenge, actually. So it isn't just one lever that we're pulling, there's multiple levers, and it isn't all about council money being needed to drive change. So I just want to clarify that. The aspirational part, from my perspective, is up to you. That is the thing that's been put on the table. The Climate and Environment Subcommittee has had a lot of conversation about 2040, 2050. The climate think tank, who have experts that have been appointed on the basis that you wanted feedback, supported the position that we were taking to be aspirational and aim for 2040. And they also understood, because we've only recently had a conversation with them, the change in government and the meaning that would have. So I think that the question you've been asked today is where your comfort level is in that space. There'll be things that we can't tell you or at this stage predict with how quickly change may happen from a central government perspective, but I don't think that's going to completely push the things that we have proposed on the table off the table.
Yeah, and just so the finance was part of it, and the other bit was around advocacy, and it may have been noted at this table from time to time I've been critical of central government. it is probably worth noting in terms of advocacy at COP28, the lobbyists outnumbered representatives by about 50 to 1, I think it was. You couldn't get a motel in Dubai for all the fossil fuel lobbyists who were there. The government's got a cosy relationship now with BlackRock in this country, for God's sake, unbelievable. So when it comes to advocacy, and I know there is a separation between, and Wellington City Council's had some real serious argy-bargy over this, but when it comes to advocacy, if what we see that's happening locally is being contrasted by what we see happening nationally, I don't think a head in the sand policy, and no one seems to be advocating that, but I don't think that will work terribly well. So we are likely to find ourselves in quite a confrontational area, particularly on this, because this council's taken this seriously, and anyone who's had a scout through the coalition agreements will realise that the other side of that equation isn't looking all that flash. So happy to take some advice about our approach on that one.
Does that require a response? I think maybe we can, yeah. But agreed with everything you just said. Councillor Kāpiti.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Madam Chair. Just looking at 2040 for zero gas emissions, that's a bit soon, isn't it? What about 2050? And how accountable are we to it? Just as you know, I've just been overseas in Europe, and I stayed in a city in the UK where the city sewerage had to be carted out to the North Sea or the Channel via a barge and navigated around the oil derricks. No, the question is, New Zealand is doing really well at the moment. It's really leading by example worldwide with gas emissions, or reducing them. And I think we're just being a bit tough on ourselves to expect zero gas emissions by 2040.
Noted.
So how accountable are we to it, and can we stretch it out to 2050?
Well, it's aspirational. So I think that the point of it being aspirational is that we're putting a stake in the ground and sending the signal to both staff within council and also to ourselves, and anchoring the action that we take in alignment with a commitment to reducing emissions as soon as possible. Understanding too, though, that we still need to understand the cost benefit to that and the biggest bang for our buck in terms of investment in initiatives that reduce emissions. So the reason why the word aspirational is in there is to provide that, I guess, that sort of protection, but it's putting a stake in the ground to say that we are shooting for this.
Okay, if it's aspirational, I think that should be spread out to the farmers too, because they have been bullied in the last few years to, tidying up their act when they don't really have to. So I think a more target-based and more sort of evidence-based would probably be more practical. Thank you.
Noted. Thanks, Councillor Kāpiti. Okay, there doesn't seem to be any more questions. So I'm just, Councillor Pravanov, no, you're not pressing your microphone, cool. Okay, so I would like to move from the chair recommendations on page 17. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Pravanov, perfect. Okay, so right of introduction. Similarly to the KHIG terms of reference, it feels like a bit of a long time coming to get to this point, but really happy that we are here today and proud that we have the opportunity to make this decision that is on the table for us this morning around setting an aspirational district-wide emissions reduction target, and noting the fact that there is a lot of work happening behind the scenes to develop a direction of travel towards that target, very much informed by the expertise we have around our awesome community and resilience, climate change and resilience community think tank, which is an awesome group of people. Also want to thank the Climate and Environment Subcommittee for their consideration of this kaupapa and for choosing to stand on the side of science, of equity, of aspiration, for the sake of both people and planet. And I think Councillor Wilson's point around the current political climate, both in New Zealand and globally, where on the first day of COP28, New Zealand was identified as the fossil of the day for the backward steps that we're taking in terms of our response to the climate crisis, and continuing to put more of a focus on how we can explore for and extract fossil fuels. we can be the ones who shine through in the face of what is a pretty bleak environment for people and for the planet right now, and the narrative that exists around climate action and how supposedly unimportant it is, but we all know that's not the case. So I think this is actually a really important moment for us to stand strong in our conviction, knowing that the decision that we will hopefully make today sends a positive signal to the future generations and also to our natural world that we care about Papatūānuku, we care, and we're willing to put that in its place. So I really urge you to stand alongside the Climate Environment Subcommittee who have recommended this to us, but also the many people globally who are already being affected by the climate crisis and who are on the front lines of the impacts. I also see this recommendation as not only about setting a target, but embodying the responsibility that we bear to be good ancestors, and acknowledging too that this decision will echo through time. Like 2040 is a little while away. We've still got kind of 17 odd years, and so this is a kind of legacy decision that by us calling for this and by us committing to this today, that will echo throughout others who will sit around this table following on from us, and it sends that really strong signal. Acknowledging the importance of collaboration with mana whenua and with the Climate Change and Resilience Community Think Tank in developing up our strategy and also our implementation plan, and how important that implementation of the action to get us towards this target actually is. And it's important to understand the target we set is only as good as the action we take to meet it. So how we're enabling our community to both play their role in reducing their own emissions at an individual, household, marae, school, business level. That's a really crucial role that we can play. So I'll leave it there, but I just urge you all to consider the long-term impacts of this decision, but also the long-term opportunities that are inherent within it, for us to put that stake in the ground and be the ones who, in a pretty bleak environment where many are feeling pretty hopeless about how our leaders, supposed leaders, are treating what is a crisis, that we can be the ones who say, actually, we're going to take this seriously and commit to being bold in the face of this crisis, which I think we should do as leaders of our community. So, Councillor Coe.
Thank you. Now, look, I'm happy to support an aspirational target of 2040. However, I'm a practical person, and I think we're in danger here of being labelled as idealists and being driven by, climate activism and all those kind of things, So we need to avoid those labels by being really practical about how we do stuff. And to me, it's going to be really important to send a clear message to our community about the size of the issue that we're dealing with, and to quantify the problem and the issues. And I have seen previously some information which sets out, the source of our emissions locally. I think it's something like 80% of vehicle emissions, and what that means in terms of reduction in vehicle numbers, like it's something like a 40% reduction, or off the top of my head, or something like that, but it's a massive reduction. So I think we need to be saying to our community, if we are actually going to achieve this target, rather than just be idealistic about it, this is the size of the problem, and this is the extent to which we're going to have to go to solve it. We either have a massive drop in the reduction of our vehicles, or we engage in sequestration, which is going to have, as Councillor Cooper's pointed out, a cost. So I think it would be really useful to say, let's just pick on those two things, as potential solutions. If we're going to drop our vehicle numbers, what are we actually talking about percentage-wise for that as one solution, if we were to solve it all that way? Or if we're going to solve it by sequestration, what's the extent of plantings and so on that we'd have to do, and what would be the cost of that? And put those as two scenarios and say, well, somewhere in between there is what we're potentially facing as a community in order to achieve this target. I think, we have to be really blunt about that, both in terms of getting the message through about the level of change and also being honest and transparent with our community, and being practical about it and serious about it rather than just being idealistic about it. So I would like to see some more work done on that, particularly in terms of what goes out to the public and the direction of travel document. We have to get down to some hard numbers, because otherwise it's all just talk, and so I think, we need to avoid just, saying all the right words and being seen to be doing the right thing, but we're in practical terms, we're not doing anything.
But that is going to be brought back next year, and Chris has just confirmed that, and that was my understanding too, and that is being worked through also with the Climate and Resilience Community Think Tank. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry,
yeah.
We're in debate, so, and you've already spoken and you have your right of reply. Even though you're in the chair, we're in debate, so I'd just appreciate it if we could just follow the order around the table.
Yeah, was just clarifying that maybe that was something that needed to be responded to potentially address any other concerns that may arise in debate, but acknowledge that comment as well. Councillor Halliday.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Love to have been a fly on the wall in the Social Sustainability Committee, not the Social Sustainability, the Environmental Committee when you guys were debating this. I'm sure it was pretty robust and that sort of stuff. But I do agree with what Councillor Cooper and Councillor Coe have been saying as well. After saying that, back in the day, we declared a climate emergency, and the climate emergency was around our own emissions. We are 80% plus on that target. We're at the hard rock face now. But it was doable. We're heading in the right direction, and this is taking a step heading more towards the wider district side of thing. Funny enough, the economy didn't collapse and the sky didn't fall. So I think we're heading in the right direction with regards to this, and I quite like the aspirational approach we're taking. But the challenge is mindsets, always has been, and I think Councillor Coe's got it right on the money. We have to be very realistic about the size of the problem, the problems, that sort of stuff, but we've also got to offer some user-friendly and simple pathways for people to understand. Otherwise, the problem becomes bigger than Ben Hur. My own personal opinion is that people need to take, if people are taking responsibility of their own footprint, we'll head in the right direction a lot quicker as such. I won't rehash a whole heap of different things, but one thing I just wanted to do was commend the chair. We don't often sit back and thank fellow councillors with regards to the pathways and the reasons that they've been involved in here. So if you came into this role a climate activist, you still are. You're recognised on the world stage in this space. We're very fortunate to have you here, but it's basically through the tenacity and diligence with regard to yourself in this space that's really got us to the place that we are. Taking on board that other councillors have agreed with that, but you have brought that mahi to the table. You've actually put the effort in to make this happen, and 3 years on, a person you're chair of our social sustainability. You're chair of our no, it's not actually. This committee here, the one above it, the one above it, with regards to things, and that's based on how you've conducted yourself and approached the situation. A lot of people in these roles talk a storm, but not many people actually put their hand up, get involved for actual change, which is what you've done. You've led by example, and I've always said that my view on councillors is we are community champions, and I think you reflect that personification of that, I dare say, in what you do. So I just wanted to publicly thank you for that, and wanted to publicly acknowledge you for that, because, like I said, we get a lot of negativity. We as councillors, we get a lot of the neck, and I think credit where credit is due. And wanted to voice that as well. So that's my bit. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Halliday. Appreciate that. Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you. Through the chair, I can't top what Martin's just said, but I'm as the chair of the Climate and Environment Subcommittee, I wanted to make a few comments, and I think. I've listened to the questions and some of the other comments that have been made, and it's a case of where, we are in a changing environment, but it's a case of where if we don't have a direction of travel, if we don't actually look at what our targets are, we won't be going anywhere, and it's really important to put our stake in the ground about what our aspirations are. And I suppose this first part is actually the strategy, and whether or not the actions should have been involved in the final strategy or whether they should be separate is another matter. But it's a case of where, when those actions are decided on, and then when the funding is looked at, that will be another set of questions. But I hope that there can be some real positive changes in this space. Councillor Halliday made the comment about, I suppose, the waste management component of this, and our chair today did say that we have got at least 2 members on our think tank in that area, and so no doubt they will bring a really important set of comments and knowledge in that space. The other thing too, picking up on what Councillor Coe has said, she's very right, and I don't know whether any of you have picked up that NZ Rail have been saying that because of their lack of funding over the next 2 or 3 years, there's actually going to be a drop by more than half of the number of trains on the Kāpiti line. And to me, if we have our ducks in a line, we are in a very, very strong position to advocate for to central government to actually increase the funding, which is the problem. Because without our public transport system, use of private cars will not decrease. The other thing that I wanted to make comment about is, and maybe it's about joining the dots up a bit more too. So, we've talked a lot about 15-minute neighbourhoods here, and I suppose in our district, that is something I think that can actually make a real difference. And part of that is actually putting the infrastructure in place, but also changing some of the mindsets. And so I'll just leave it there in relation to what we have before us today. But the other thing that I just want to mention is that part of, making a real difference to our environment is actually our environment strategy, which will be coming along probably early next year. So this is actually one part of it. So previously you've probably heard about the environment strategy. It hasn't dropped off. It is still in the wings, and for various reasons it's just been slowed down a bit. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Pavanov. Councillor Wilson.
I just want to make the case for idealism, actually. The idealism by its nature, Platonic idealists, you will be aware of that. Because we are in that aspirational space, and because our role is an advocacy role, then idealism for me is the goal. Pragmatism, I think, leads to the comfort of those in status quo positions. I think if we look at feminists in the 60s and the civil rights actions and those people who were all accused of being idealists, and if they hadn't have been idealists, then we would have maintained the policies of the time, right? So sometimes pragmatism versus idealism. I'll take idealism every day if the aspirational goals are sufficiently lofty, and everything is doable. I mean, it's not idealism to say, let's save the planet. Well, actually, it's not about saving the planet. The planet will be fine. It's about saving the humans and everybody else on it. The planet's going to be terrific once we're gone. Aspiring to lofty goals, I think, is a laudable aim, and so I'll keep being unrealistic for as long as possible.
Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Mayor Holbrook, and then I'll have a right of reply, and then we'll look to move the recommendation.
Should I continue debating the concept of idealism?
Yes.
It was relevant.
So I guess the thing about idealism is it sometimes seems to be an unrealistic goal, but to me it's reaching for an ideal. So I think we need to be reaching for an ideal in this space. So I've got no problem with being called an idealist myself either. But I think we've got to trust that we're putting together a panel that are just going to put their best foot forward to achieve these goals. And I was just really impressed with the level of interest and the level of expertise that came forward from our community. It's just incredible that those people give their time and their expertise to this. And I think it also reflects the number of people who are really concerned about this in the community, and they want us to be putting our best foot forward as well. I'd like to acknowledge the work that Councillor Pravanov has done on this as well as Chair of the Climate and Environment Committee, and thank you for pointing out that the environment strategy is also an important factor in this, and thank you for the work that you've done keeping driving that as well, because that allows us to not just focus on numbers and graphs and how we're going to bring a figure down, but also that wider environmental focus, which is so important for so many in our community as well as our environment. So thank you for the work that you've done on this, Sophie, and staff, and Jocelyn as well. And we really look forward to, you know, when you go out to play a game of cricket, you say, I want to win the match, not how many runs you're going to score off each ball. So let's win this match.
Agreed. Good analogy. Yeah. Knock it for six. Cool. Okay, I'll just make a couple of brief comments and then we'll move to a vote. I also want to acknowledge Councillor Pravanov for her leadership in the Climate and Environment Subcommittee space and how well those conversations, those robust conversations, as Councillor Halliday talked about, had been enabled, and how useful those conversations were in reaching the point that we're at. And so I think that's very much down to the way that you facilitated that space, and also sitting down with Councillor Pravanov and going through the Climate Change and Resilience Community Think Tank people who'd applied. We were both just in awe, as you were, Janet, around the both the numbers of people who wanted to put their names forward, but the diversity of people, the calibre of people, and how much energy, even though we're only 2 meetings into that kaupapa, just how keen they are to get stuck into this work. And it's incredibly energising. And so I think this decision couldn't have come at a better time to help also give them that momentum that they need to truly activate their skill sets and contribute them to something that will be tangible. And I acknowledge that point as well. I hear the points around having reference to practical action and also the hard numbers in the direction of travel, and I can assure you that's something the think tank are well across, and that Councillor Pravanov and I will continue advocating for and working with staff on, and also that importance of doing that as we're engaging with the community so that they understand and are brought along that journey too. The points around advocacy and our role as, I guess, a climate champion and a loud one, I think through having an aspirational target, we can actually leverage those advocacy opportunities, and that will give us only a stronger arm in those conversations, because we will be able to say that this is our aspiration and then show the work that's gone into developing that direction of travel towards the target. But also adding in that our role isn't only advocacy. We've talked quite a bit about advocacy today, but also the tools that we have available in the land use space. Plan Change 2 as an example of almost a climate action in itself. When we look at our open spaces and our strategic direction in terms of our CWB network and our tracks and trails, that is all connected in to this bigger picture. So we can't see that mahi as being siloed, because it very much has co-benefits in terms of the planet and reducing emissions. So that's quite exciting too. And there are tools and levers that we have that we should not dismiss at the hand of being a good advocate, acknowledging that there is a lot of work that we also can do and should do at a district council level to affect change in the district-wide state of emissions. And a lot of that can also be centred around education and enabling our communities to be better advocates as well, so that we are facilitating that kind of groundswell of support for the things that we're calling for at a national level as well. So yeah, I think we shall move to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Division? Okay. So, do we still need to read out the names of everyone bar Councillor Cooper? Okay. Oh, thanks for your thumbs up, Kim. Okay, so all those in favour, please raise your hand.
Alrighty. I have Councillor Warwick for.
Oh, if you're for, raise your hand.
Raise hands.
Yeah.
Great. Councillor Coe. Councillor Halliday.
Councillor Coford? No? Okay.
Councillor Pravanov. The Mayor. Councillor Wilson.
Councillor Handford.
Councillor Handford.
And against?
I have Councillor Coford, Councillor Spires, and Councillor Cooper. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4.
Oh, and Kim.
Oh, sorry, and
Kim Tahiwi.
Kim Tahiwi. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 for, and 3 against.
Cool. So that is carried. Thank you. We'll take a 10-minute break now, so coming back at 10:40 for the direction of travel. Oh, yeah, for ED strategy.